Have you ever wondered why a man who once made you feel like the center of the universe slowly begins to make you feel invisible? At first, he is magnetic, the kind of man who knows exactly what to say, not just to charm you, but to mirror your soul. He doesn't just compliment your beauty, he echoes your dreams. You feel seen, finally. He's attentive, obsessed in all the ways you once thought meant love. But what if I told you that this wasn't love at all? It was bait. The narcissist doesn't fall in love with you. He falls in love with your light, your reflection in his eyes, your admiration, which he consumes to fill a void he cannot name. This isn't affection, it's possession. You weren't chosen for your soul, you were selected for your supply, and yet, you didn't notice, not at first. How could you? He doesn't arrive as a villain. He shows up as a dream. The one who texts good morning and good night. The one who listens, so attentively, so fully, until he's memorized your insecurities and knows exactly how to use them. He asks about your childhood with tender curiosity. He holds your hand like he means it. But deep beneath that charm is something hollow, something ravenous. You don't fall in love with a narcissist, you're pulled into orbit around his need. In Jungian terms, he is the golden boy hiding a shadow so vast it threatens to consume him, and you are the mirror in which he tries to deny it. He projects his darkness onto you so he doesn't have to face it himself. The longer you stay, the more your light dims under the weight of his unhealed wounds. But you don't leave, not yet. Because you're empathic, intuitive, the kind of woman who believes that if you just love harder, prove your worth more fiercely, he'll finally see you again the way he did in the beginning. What you don't yet understand is that the man you're trying to bring back never existed. He was a mask, worn only long enough to pull you under. He begins to withdraw, then critique. The compliments turn into comparisons. The intimacy becomes transaction. Your voice, once celebrated, is now silenced by subtle belittling. You begin to second-guess yourself. Is it you? Are you too sensitive, too needy, too emotional? No, you're not too much. You're simply into deep with someone who feeds on your self-doubt. He gaslights with surgical precision, not always through outright denial, but through suggestion, a raised eyebrow, a sarcastic smirk, a delayed text that leaves you unraveling. You find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, shrinking your boundaries to keep the peace. You lose sleep wondering how the love turned so cold. What you're experiencing isn't a relationship, it's a psychological entrapment. Narcissists don't need partners, they need reflections. They need someone to prop up the grand illusion of who they think they are. And when you stop playing your part, when you start asking questions, setting limits, reclaiming pieces of yourself, you are no longer useful. And so, they punish. This is the cycle: idealize, devalue, discard. Over and over, until you forget what real love feels like. Until you begin to equate anxiety with attraction, chaos with passion, silence with mystery. But let me ask you this: who were you before him? Before you started walking on emotional eggshells? Before you twisted yourself into versions he might love more? Before you became a caretaker to a wounded ego masquerading as confidence? Before his shadows began to haunt your dreams? Somewhere in that timeline, you stopped being a woman and became an echo, his echo. It's not your fault. You weren't naive. You were trusting. And there's a difference. You weren't foolish. You were hopeful. You believed in connection, in redemption, in the idea that love could heal. But love alone doesn't heal someone who refuses to look into their own abyss. And the narcissist, he refuses. He cannot sit with shame, so he transfers it to you. He cannot acknowledge weakness, so he criticizes yours. He cannot hold your light without trying to dim it. You may think you're helping him evolve, but in truth, he's devolving your sense of self. There's no partnership in this, only performance. And what's most dangerous is that he can make you believe this is love. But it is not. It is control, cloaked in charm. It is dependence, disguised as desire. It is manipulation, masquerading as vulnerability. And if your heart is aching right now because this feels too familiar, don't look away. Stay here. Listen. Because what's coming next might just be the moment you wake up. You begin to wake up not with a scream, but with a whisper. A whisper in your chest that something is off, even if you can't name it yet. It's the subtle nausea when he compliments you after a fight, as if affection were a reset button for his cruelty. It's the tightness in your lungs when he says you're overreacting, after he's withdrawn for days. It's the hollow in your stomach when you realize you can no longer trust your own instincts. This is not merely emotional confusion, it is psychological warfare. The narcissist has weaponized your empathy, and because you are deeply attuned, you try to fix what he broke. You think if you stay soft enough, quiet enough, small enough, he'll stop the destruction. But the truth is he will not, because to him, your breaking isn't collateral damage, it's control. This is the power play of the narcissistic archetype, the seducer who disarms you with charm, only to disorient you with contradiction. The man who clings to you when you try to leave, only to abandon you when you stay. He is the embodiment of paradox, not because he is complex, but because he is lost. A boy in a man's body, whose emotional development is arrested at the age when shame first became unbearable. And rather than feel it, he learned to project it onto every woman who dared love him. He doesn't want a partner, he wants an audience. Every moment with him is theater. He curates his image like a god. He smiles for strangers, but scorns you in private. You are the backstage crew to his performance, invisible, but essential. He needs your devotion to feel significant, and he will drain it from you, drop by drop, until your identity is no longer your own. You may start to dress differently, speak differently, silence your laughter because it annoys him, hide your ambition because it threatens him. You begin to disappear, slowly, gracefully, like a sunset he doesn't even notice. You call it love, but what it really is erosion. And still, you stay, because your inner child, the part of you that yearns for safety, for certainty, for love that doesn't disappear, believes this is the price you must pay. That if you endure the emotional starvation long enough, he will one day remember the way he adored you in the beginning. But the beginning wasn't real. It was a mask, and now you're living with the shadow behind it. In Jungian terms, he has cast his anima, the unconscious feminine within him, onto you. He doesn't love you as you are. He loves what you represent to his fractured psyche. You are the ideal, the fantasy, the bomb. And once the illusion wears thin, he resents you for revealing his own emptiness. You become a threat to his illusion, and threats must be punished or discarded. So he punishes you with distance. He withdraws affection like oxygen, watches you gasp for it, then returns just in time to keep you tethered. It's not love, it's intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful conditioning tactic in psychological manipulation. He conditions you to seek his validation like a drug, until the absence of abuse feels like affection, and the presence of abuse feels like your fault. And still, you question yourself. Maybe he's just misunderstood. Maybe he's healing. Maybe if you're more patient, more loving, more perfect, he'll become the man you know he could be. But listen carefully. The man you believe he could be is the man you invented. The real man, the one standing in front of you, is showing you who he is. And your desire to see potential over pattern is the very spell that keeps you trapped. You are not here to fix a man. You are not here to absorb his darkness. You are not a container for his rage, his silence, his shame. You are a woman, a soul with a voice that was meant to echo, not to shrink, a heart that was meant to be held, not tested, a light that was meant to shine, not dim to fit someone else's shadow. But the narcissist will not tell you this. He cannot. To empower you is to lose you, and he would rather keep you fractured than see you free. So he will remind you of your flaws. He will twist your truth. He will interrupt your healing with false promises of change. He will say, "I need you," not because he cherishes your spirit, but because he cannot bear the void your absence would reveal. You must ask yourself, are you being loved or are you being used? The answer is in your body, in your breath, in the way your soul contracts when he enters the room. Love does not feel like dread. Love does not feel like erasure. Love does not feel like surviving. This is not your home, but you are not lost. You are simply waking up. Waking up is not a thunderclap. It's a slow burn behind your eyes. It's the shiver in your spine when he speaks to you with sugar-laced contempt. It's the way your name in his mouth no longer sounds like love, but ownership. It's noticing that you flinch more often than you smile. That silence has become your only form of self-protection. You start to remember things, fragments at first, moments you brushed aside, justified, swallowed. The way he subtly mocked your passions. The night he ruined your joy because it didn't center him. The times he made you feel irrational for expressing a need. then punished you for going quiet. These aren't accidents. They are architecture. A design so manipulative, it's nearly invisible until it begins to collapse under its own weight. The narcissist doesn't simply hurt you. He dismantles you. But he does it so gradually, so convincingly, that you begin to believe the crumbling is your own fault. This is his genius and his curse. For the very control he craves becomes the thing that eventually exposes him. You see, control breeds blindness. The narcissist cannot imagine you leaving. He believes you need him too much, that his chaos has hypnotized you too deeply. He underestimates your becoming. But something ancient stirs inside you. The quiet fire of the feminine archetype. The one Jung called the self. Whole, luminous, buried beneath the roles you've played for him. Beneath the caretaker, the muse, the peacemaker, the perfect woman. That self has had enough. She begins to reclaim you. Not with rage, but with truth. She holds up a mirror, not to reflect him, but to reveal you. The real you. The one who remembers the sound of her own laughter. The one who dreams without apology. The one who dares to say, "This is not love. This is survival masquerading as romance." You begin to set boundaries. Not just physical ones, but energetic. You stop explaining yourself. You start choosing silence over chaos. You start valuing peace over potential. You no longer bleed for the hope of being seen. You see yourself, and he feels it. Narcissists are exquisitely sensitive to power shifts, especially yours. Your detachment confuses him. Your calm enrages him. Your lack of reaction threatens his identity. He lashes out, not because you are wrong, but because you are no longer bending. Now the mask slips faster. The cruelty becomes less hidden, the control more desperate. He begins to panic, not because he's losing you, but because he's losing control over you. That's the difference. He doesn't fear your absence. He fears your freedom. And yet, a part of you still aches, because this isn't just the loss of a relationship. It's the collapse of a belief. You believed love could transform him. You believed patience could soften him. You believed that if you just healed enough, he would meet you in that wholeness. But now you see, he doesn't want healing. He wants worship. He doesn't want depth. He wants devotion without accountability. This is where many women falter, right at the edge of awakening, because the grief is real. The mourning is holy. You're not just letting go of him. You're burying the version of yourself who thought you needed to be broken to be loved. But you are not broken. You were conditioned to confuse pain with passion, drama with depth, dominance with desire. But now, the veil has lifted. You begin to spot the patterns, not just in him, in yourself. The way your trauma bonded to his. The way your wounds whispered, "This is familiar." This is where individuation begins, the Jungian journey of becoming whole. You stop trying to merge with someone else and instead turn inward, into the shadow. You face your need for validation, your fear of abandonment, your longing to be chosen. And in doing so, you reclaim the power you gave away, not just to him, to every man, every moment, every message that told you you were too much or not enough. Now you remember, you are the fire, not the fuel. So you pull away, not in hatred, but in clarity. He begs, rages, manipulates, but you are no longer entangled. You have withdrawn your projection. You see him for what he is, a boy inside a broken mirror, and you no longer need to rescue what refuses to rise. You leave, not with drama, not with vengeance, with stillness. You walk away, not because he's beneath you, but because you are finally beside yourself, reunited. Hold awake. There is no need to explain. No need to wait for closure. Closure isn't found in his apology. It's found in your liberation. It's in the way your breath deepens, the way you sleep through the night without anxiety curling in your chest, the way joy returns, not as an explosion, but a quiet remembering. You survived the storm he called love. And now you rise. Now you rise, not into a fantasy, but into truth. This is not the triumphant crescendo of a movie scene, where you slam the door and reclaim your power in one cinematic breath. No, this is real life. And in real life, rising is quieter, slower. It's the 1,000 tiny choices you make each day to return to yourself. You stop checking his social media. You stop replaying the conversations where he twisted your words. You stop trying to make sense of a person who lives in contradiction. Because now you understand, the narcissist isn't a puzzle to be solved. He is a void. And no amount of your light will ever fill a man who's determined to remain empty. This is where the sacred alchemy begins. You stop bleeding for the unworthy and start tending to your own wounds. You stop asking, why did he do this to me, and begin asking what in me allowed it to continue. Not as a form of blame, but of reclamation. Because deep down, your soul always knew. She whispered in your gut. She screamed in your silence. She wept when you smiled through the pain. But you weren't ready to listen. Not yet. You thought love meant sacrifice. You thought boundaries were rejection. You thought self-worth was earned through suffering. But now you see. Now you understand that healing is not about becoming better for him. It's about becoming whole for you. That the feminine doesn't need to bend into approval. She needs to root into truth. That the woman who begs for breadcrumbs is gone. And in her place stands a sovereign force that no man can manipulate without consequence. This is the death of the good girl. The one who smiled when she was hurting. The one who forgave too quickly. The one who waited for a man to choose her before she chose herself. She is gone. Buried beneath the silence he once used to punish you. And in her place, a woman with fire in her eyes and peace in her bones. You begin to recognize how rare that is. In a world that teaches women to be agreeable, passive, easy to love, you've become something dangerous. A woman who knows what she deserves. A woman who will no longer collapse to be loved. A woman who no longer falls for projection disguised as affection. And this changes everything. Men like him, the narcissists, the manipulators, the emotionally stunted, will still appear. But now you see them for what they are. Not gods, not twin flames, not wounded souls to be healed. You see the red flags and you don't romanticize them. You don't get pulled into the narrative of maybe this time it's different. Because you've been to the underworld of that story, and you know how it ends. You know that love isn't chaos. It isn't longing. It isn't pain. Love is clarity. It is reciprocity. It is the absence of fear. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You no longer confuse validation with value. You no longer hand your heart to men who haven't earned the right to witness it. And this is the most terrifying thing to someone like him. Because narcissists do not fear rejection. They fear irrelevance. They fear being forgotten. And you have become unforgettable not because of what he gave you, but because of what you reclaimed. You are no longer the echo of his wounds. You are the voice of your own becoming. This is individuation, the sacred psychological rebirth Jung spoke of, where the false self dies and the true self emerges, where the shadow is no longer feared, but integrated, where you realize that your worth was never up for negotiation. It was never his to define. Now, the silence he once used to control you becomes your sanctuary. The emptiness he left behind becomes your canvas. The grief he caused becomes your teacher. And slowly, with each breath, you start to feel joy return. Not the frantic highs of trauma bonding, but the steady warmth of coming home. To yourself, to your body, to the life that was waiting for you beyond the illusion. You realize that peace is not boring. That calm is not cold. That stillness is not absence, it's presence. And in that presence, you meet yourself for the first time, not as someone who needs to be loved, but as someone who already is. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need him to understand. The most profound closure is not when they say they're sorry. It's when you no longer need them to be. And so, you walk forward. Not faster, not louder, just freer. Because now you know. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.